for joining in. Dr. Judy here, Dr. Judy WTF. And I can't thank you enough for being here because I love my audience. I love to interact with you and talk to you as opposed to talking into a camera. So this is a call-in show, everyone. So please do call in. And that number is 323-524-2599. And tonight we're going to talk about something that I've talked about in the past, but I just want to bring the point home and across to everyone that, as many of you know, narcissism is a tough one. It's a tough one when you don't have empathy, when you have walls around you, when you're dealing with somebody with walls around them. And how do you crack through? And what do you do if they're your husband, wife, significant other, boss, daughter, son, friend, whoever they are to you? What do you do? What do you do if you're the one that's starting to wake up and realize, maybe I do have some narcissistic traits, and I've been watching enough videos to recognize that. And I don't really want to lose all my friends and family and so on, because even though the center is the self, from a selfish point of view, even a person who is a narcissist or who has narcissistic traits does not want to split assets or be humiliated or be splitting friendships, especially old friendships that date back to elementary school and high school. So what are they to do? So I had an idea for tonight, and that's why I'm sharing it with you. And the idea is ethics and self-correction, a pathway to healing narcissistic behaviors. So let's get into it. What is narcissism? What are those behaviors like? I'm going to do a little mind mapping tonight. My name is Dr. Judy Rosenberg. I'm a clinical psychologist here at the Psychological Healing Center, which is where I see patients other than when I see them on Zoom. And tonight we're going to break down the mind map, as we usually do, into the 9 panels. And if you don't mind putting those 9 panels up so that I can show people how this all connects dots together and why it is such an effective system for healing. Basically, number 1, it doesn't take a lifetime to heal. Number 2, it really gets down to the root cause of the problem, which are all those childhood wounds. So let's start with, how is narcissism even formed, and who would even pick a narcissist, and what are you doing in narcissistic relationships to begin with? And that's what the Freud part of the show. What the Freud are you doing? And what the Freud are these behaviors that become over time destructive, obnoxious, sickening, and make other people sick. So when we look at panel number 1, you could see the light in the background, and that light represents who you should have, could have been. In other words, you minus all the childhood wounds of neglects and abuses and parents who smother you and make you feel important and then devalue you and bring you through a merry-go-round of ups and downs. And I think we have a call, so I'll pick up my mind mapping after I answer the call, so we can even answer the questions during the call. Hi, thank you so much for calling in. And what is your name, please?
Hello, my name is Steve.
Steve, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. And how do you relate to the subject?
Right. I called in late, so I'm not sure exactly what the subject is.
Actually, no, I just started the show just a few minutes ago, and the subject is to do with self-reflection and ethics and self-reflection and correction as a pathway to healing narcissistic behaviors. That is the subject for tonight. And how do you relate to this particular topic?
Let's see here. Give me a second, please.
I'm sorry?
I got a very big thing about ethics.
Okay. Can you speak up? It's a little bit difficult to hear you. Hopefully, we'll be
Oh,
able.
okay. I've got a big issue about ethics.
Sure. Okay.
Can you hear me still?
Yes.
And let's put this way, I got kind of pretty good in life. I did extremely well for a while,
Okay.
but got conned, and so I mean I've got a very deep understanding of that, and you know I mean, I don't have much of a trust level left. You know,
I'm sorry. You
you
don't have
look at
much of a. You don't have much of a
a
what?
trust level,
A trust
trust,
level. Okay, well,
yeah.
when we are injured at the causal level, meaning when our parents betray us, when they abuse us, when they neglect us, when they put their own feelings before ours, they set the bar and they set a low bar and a low bar on trust. And so that's why people who go through the mind map process or are interested in healing just from from the beginning. First issue is, can they even trust the therapist? Can they even trust that healing is possible? Can they even trust their own mind? So this is not atypical, Steve.
Right. Well, I mean, if one looks at the world right now, right? I mean,
Okay.
look at who they elected president a number of years back. I
Okay.
mean, the guy is a total sociopath, lunatic,
Okay,
and
so
millions.
without getting political, because I know people hate it when I get into the politics. Just keep it to the topic of ethics and the how
But
are
let me ask you this: do you feel that the world itself has taken a bit of a large swing in this area?
Well, of course I do.
In other
Otherwise,
words,
I wouldn't have. Listen, I felt that the world took a large swing in, and we've had a large swing in the wrong direction. You have to remember, for those of you who don't know me very well, I'm a child of Holocaust survivors. Okay, so back in
oh, right.
Okay, so back in the day, my family was persecuted, and some of them ended up in gas chambers and so on. And so that's just
Sweet.
yeah. So I was always motivated to make the world a better place and to heal human and global disconnect. And so some people just have a hard time forming empathy and forming connections because they lose trust. So how are they going to live on the planet? You can't do what you can't do. If you can't feel, then so now what? Do you really want to lose your friends and family? Do you want to be seen as a horrible, unethical, manipulative, devaluing person? So what can we do to grab on to growth if going into the system gone wrong, your heart has already been, in essence, numbed.
I think in my case on this particular topic, unconsciously, I don't think I knew it at the time, but when I unconsciously decided, you know, is the world a fair place anymore? You know, I think that's when I took a tailspin.
It's a great question. Is the world a fair place? Okay, so the way I want to spin this is, let's make ourselves a fair place. Okay, we can be fair, we can play fair. Even somebody who acts unempathically or has no empathy can still play fair. And that's why I named the show The Pathway to Healing These Narcissistic Behaviors, is to concentrate on doing the right thing and make your best effort to self-reflect, meaning look in the mirror and not just see how pretty or not pretty you are, but just see what traits are coming through. Are these traits hurting other people? Are they blocking the light of connection? Are they hurting you? Are you manipulating others? Are you degrading others? Are you devaluing others? And these are the things that are human disconnects. So if you want to live on the planet, fortunately or unfortunately, we are wired to connect. And if we're wired to connect, then we don't want to kill off these human connections. And so there's so much information about narcissism, and it's incurable. And what are you going to do if somebody just lacks the empathy chip, as I put it? Well, I still think that they can make best efforts toward acting ethically and using their brain to self-reflect and learning.
You called it what? Lacking the empathy? What?
A chip, like a computer.
A chip. Yeah, I see.
Like an empathy
chip. I've heard it called the empathy gene, of course.
Right, and I don't think it's
chip. I get you. All right.
So there's something lacking here, and so to go back to the cause, why is it lacking? When we have parents who don't show us empathy, how are we supposed to develop it? When our parents are demeaning and devaluing us, and then on the other side, overvaluing us for unearned merits, they just aggrandize the children for no other reason than they're making that person their golden child so that they can serve the parent and then enroll.
Right. I've watched, rather listened and watched to your shows, and have done a fair amount of study about it, and that is absolutely my parents. They didn't realize it until I was older. But,
okay, you mean the part where they overvalued you and then they devalued
you? They selected the golden child, and I think at one time I was that person.
Okay.
And then
so
I had,
you were the
a little slip up, and
so the
quite a story.
Right. So the golden child doesn't always feel so golden. They may feel golden in that season, but then they may, when they get out of the system, or they don't play along with their parents' agenda, pretty soon they are the devalued child, as you must know. Yes?
Yes, that is precisely what happened to me.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Okay, so now the propensity might be, and I'm not saying it is in your case, but it might be to blueprint off of the parent or the parents. And that's why the mind map, because the mind map is a way to show how the old blueprint of the past now reacts in you and encodes in you, and then creates chaos, defenses, and breakdowns and human disconnects, and how to morph out of this. So let's say that you're that golden child, and now that whole system has gone south on you, and you're non-trusting, and you are perhaps disappointed, hurt, angry, and all the other feelings that go with it, but yet you still want friendships, correct?
Yes.
And you still want relationships, whether they be romantic or platonic, or you still want relationships, yes?
Right. I'm trying to do some things in business.
Okay.
Quite complicated.
Okay, so a while ago, it was such that EQ wasn't even known about. What's an EQ? Emotional intelligence? What's that? Either you're smart or you're dumb. What's an EQ? Well, an EQ, in the way that I see it, the way I envision it from a mind map perspective, is the ability to step in another person's shoes and feel for them or feel with them and see through their eyes, and then have skills of connectivity, because if we don't have skills of connectivity, then we may not be hired for a job. We may not have a significant relationship. Our children might not attach to us correctly, and a lot of
Right.
chaos can be, right? A lot of chaos can be born out of it. So, at the very least, this show is really about
Connectivity.
like a plan B. Okay, so if we can't get the heart to open, if we can't get the heart to melt and connect, at least we can play a better game of life, just like my book says. And by the way, for those
Okay.
who haven't gotten a copy of Be the Cause Healing Human Disconnect, please do. You can get it through Amazon. You can get a free PDF through my website. Okay, so this is plan B. If you cannot develop this level of empathy for human beings, at least don't have.
I do. I
Okay.
do. Well, at this juncture, I have, in a way, I guess the way to say it is just such huge suspicion
Yes.
and being very guarded at not getting ripped off again. That
Okay, so let me ask you
it might
this.
have an.
Oh, okay, so let's if you would just bear with me for a minute. So let's do
Oh,
this with,
sure.
okay, with your permission. Let's go back to see what kind of messages you absorbed from your family of origin, whether they be core beliefs about yourself or the world. Okay, and just think about what that those may be, and then think about how your behavior in relationship to those core beliefs might be. So, if they're core beliefs like I can't trust anybody, or the world is a horrible place, or something like that, then there are certain behaviors that go with that, correct?
Yeah. Okay.
So in other words, what I'm saying is that's not you, Steve. That's what you were tainted with. That's not how you were intended to be. That's what your unfortunate psychological legacy. That's what it left you with. I'm not suggesting the world is all that great. I mean, there are aspects obviously that are, and there's a lot of darkness and negativity and corruption and all of that. But if you're looking through the lens of perception, uh, through the lens of perception of fear and mistrust and whatever that lens looks like to you, it's going to come with a set of behaviors. And those behaviors
Right.
may be correct, they may be off-putting behaviors, really off-putting. So that's all I'm asking people to do is look in the mirror and self-reflect so that you can self-correct on the behaviors that are human disconnects. Can you maybe, if
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
willing to?
I'm getting the picture.
Oh,
This is very insightful and a good um, session, so to speak. The connection thing. I'll have a big takeaway from that. I will look to do that better.
yes, that's
And,
that's
and
what
I
I'm
and I
asking. Yeah, thank you. That's what I'm asking people to do is instead of buying into the old blueprint, the old model of how your parents set you up to be, which is
right.
being at the effect of their system gone wrong. I'm asking people as much as they can, and it's really, really, really difficult. Even difficult for me to be the cause. I talk about being the cause. I want to be the cause. I want to be the cause of your betterment. I want to be the cause of insights that are going to make a difference in your life. I want to be the cause of a better next generation. Okay, so that's why I talk about multi-generational transmission and healing so that your children can be the beneficiary of your better mental health. But in this case, just really simply, we have to look at the behaviors that are anti-connection. We want to be anti-connection. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so
Of course.
we want to be the anti-connection. And if we are that, then we're rigorously looking at ourselves and thinking, wow, I learned from my parents to be so negative. I learned from my parents to devalue other people. I learned from my parents to be mistrustful. I learned from my parents to think I'm so great. I also learned from my parents to think that I'm so terrible. Gee, how could I be so great in one second?
Actually, in my case,
go ahead.
Oh, it wasn't that, but I did learn from them. For example, my father was a hothead, and if I run into something where I, see a wrong committed, I do react like my father. There's no question about it.
Okay,
and that behavior, I can now see that can be off-putting. So
excellent.
the issue of
you can
connection.
Yes.
I'm sorry?
No, so it's excellent that you could see that it's off-putting. So now, why don't we take the good of it, okay? The good of it is that you are incensed when people are unethical or they're not doing the right thing. So that's the good part. Great. We're not supposed to like it when people are unethical or mean or betraying or any of that. So let's take that part and let's try to elevate it so that we can do something better than what our parents did with it.
Right. And,
okay,
and
so you see
the
what
idea
I'm saying?
to me is don't hold off any reaction that could be off-putting.
Correct.
When I see that kind of rule being broken.
Yes.
They'll try to maintain the connection.
Yes.
I could mentally sever the connection and say, this isn't going to work, but I don't want to show it.
You could, because that would be taking a higher plateau of saying, I don't appreciate your behavior and this is not working for me. And I don't feel comfortable associating with you based on that you misrepresented your
I'll buy that.
Okay, for example. And so what I'm modeling here is you're not reactive, you're not being like your father, you're not losing your cool. So already you're in a more elegant conversation, correct?
Yes, I'm with you all the way on that.
Okay, and then as a result of that, guess who likes who better? That's a trick question.
Correct.
So you're going to like yourself better, okay? Because you didn't like the way your father was, did you?
No, and that's a negative aspect of myself.
Right. So
no
so if you didn't like the way your father was, then I'm just drawing a parallel here, then you wouldn't like yourself being like your father. So that's where the self-reflection comes in, where you look in the mirror, proverbial mirror, and say, I don't like being like my father. I like that he fought do the right thing. I can do that. Let me figure out a better way to do that. Okay, does that make sense, Steve?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I really appreciate.
Hey, let me ask you.
Yes.
Let me ask you one other thing here that's been heavy on my mind recently, and I will notice behaviors out of people. And let me just ask you straight out: do you find that there are people that don't want to hear good news, that are definitely jealous of, a co-celebration of something?
You mean good news Wait, let me clarify. Good news about you or good news about
Yeah,
themselves?
yeah.
Yeah, I come
But
across that all the time. Okay, so I now have learned not to share. They have a saying in AA. I remember a quote that somebody taught me years and years ago. Don't share your toys with people who are going to break them. So if you have good news and that person is stuck in envy and wants to demean and devalue you or fakes the happy smile for you and then changes the subject, don't share your good news with them. Just don't. And that's another way to self-reflect as you.
I mean, I'm kind of wondering, you know, has this been something that I've been missing for, you know, 10, 20, 30 years?
Yeah, you mean having somebody to share your joy with?
Did, did, uh, let me make sure that I word this correctly. Being, I am surprised now in 2023
Okay.
when I look back over the last 3 years and the longer, when I have good news to share.
Yes.
I'm not seeing what I'd say would be an appropriate reaction, as in, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's what
Nice,
we want.
nice.
Absolutely. That is something very
But
much lacking.
it seems like it's a rare thing.
It is.
Am I reading the world correctly?
I mean, I'm also having that experience where I find it difficult to share good news with people because if they're not having a good life, then my good news is a narcissistic wound to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see.
Okay, so it's a
Yeah.
wound. If I say to a friend, "Oh, guess what? I won the lottery." I'm making it up, but maybe one day I'll be sitting here saying, "Hey, this is crazy," and if they look at me like, "Oh, congratulations," okay, why is that
Right.
happening? That's happening because maybe they're financially struggling or their life is not going well and they don't want you to do a one-upsmanship on them because it's too painful
Oh,
somehow.
one upsmanship. I
Right.
see.
Like I'm better than you, I'm richer than you, I'm prettier
Yeah,
than
yeah, yeah,
you, I'm
yeah.
smarter than
Right.
you.
Okay.
Okay. So they just like a crab, they want to drag you back down on their level. And if you have friends like this, just be careful that either you don't have friends like this and you have to on some level start saying your goodbyes or limiting your contact. And then this is the self.
I ended up kind of doing something like that years ago.
Mhm.
Where some stuff bugged me and I just disconnected, and I ended up finding myself
That isn't that a
quite
level,
alone.
right? But isn't that a level of narcissism? A selfless person, even, of course, we all have feelings of, I forget which is which, envy and jealousy. I think jealousy is where you just want what they want, and envy is where you try to rip them down. We all have feelings of jealousy, and some of us have feelings of envy. It's just that when you're friends with a person, you want to celebrate their happiness with them because that's connecting to their
Yeah, and
heart,
that's
mind,
not that big
body.
a deal. That's not that big a deal to me. It's not like a great big bummer,
Yeah.
but I am completely surprised at non-reactions.
Okay, so
Like
here's what I okay, so
jumping up and down and, oh, look this and that or whatever. I just mentioned it. A lot of the stuff we've done over text these days. People you've known for a long time or whatever, and just like no reaction.
well, no
Oh, that's
reaction
good.
is
Cool for you.
Okay, so
And I'm like,
here's what you do. This is the self-reflection and correction part. No reaction over and over again. You get the memo. They're not that happy for you. Okay? They're not
yeah,
that happy for
right,
you because of their own life. All right, so stop sharing stuff with people that give you no reaction. They're not happy for you. And start finding
right,
people who are happy for you. And the people who are happy for you, in most cases, are going to be growth-oriented people who themselves are trying to climb the ladder. They're trying to gain more insight and wisdom and spirituality and success and health and all that. And those are the people that you want to remember. Panel 8, let me put that up for a second so people can see it. Panel 8 is that panel that shows teamwork. You see the little people? Those are actually little people climbing up the ladder, the DNA strand. And what are they doing? They're helping each other and being helped by each other. And this kind of synergy, this kind of teamwork is evolving. It's evolving the human race. It's evolving every single person on that ladder. So as a team, we get stronger. And if there's one team member that just wants to drag us down and disconnect from that beautiful silver chain, well, then you don't really want them on your growth ladder, do you?
well, at my age, which is, 65-ish, this isn't the time you end up with new friends. This is kind of where maintain what you got.
Okay, so if you're going to maintain what you got, then you need to play a better game of life with what you got. And if you know that you're going to be hurt because they're not clapping their hands when you're telling them a success story, then just dial it down. Dial it down, or don't, and do the maintenance.
But in other words, what I'm describing here, this is fair. This is fairly to quite common, in your opinion.
Well, maybe I'm hanging around some not wonderful people myself, and there are some people who really are wonderful that I know who'd be very, very happy for me. They're just, congratulatory and acknowledging and so on. And it's painful because, why do we do great things? Well, part of it is because we want to grow. Another part of it is because we want to be greater and greater, because in our minds, being greater and greater means being more and more lovable. And so when we achieve something, we want accolades. We want some sort of an acknowledgement. And we want to know that somebody is on our team. Somebody wants the best of the best. That's the best relationship that you can find. So going back to the topic of narcissism and ethics. Okay, if you look at what this is all about ethically, is it nice to? I mean, you're not going to get any kind of ethical violation here, but it's not a humane thing to do, to just let a person who puts such effort into something and has achieved something to just lay unacknowledged. That's not a nice thing to do.
Okay, all right. That's a good way of expressing it.
Okay, it's a hurtful.
Well, I'll tell you what, I would if the world was full of people in your business as good as you, it'd solve a hell of a lot of problems.
Well,
you were really, really, really good at this.
Well, I really, really, really appreciate it. Part of it is I really, really do love what I do, and I can't tell you how helpful the mind map has been to me, because it just allows me to see things clearly, and I'm visual. So instead of sitting there for years and years explaining things to my patients and just letting them talk away, we can systematize it and connect the dots. But that particular dot of lack of acknowledgement, even if you don't have the empathy, even if you're not feeling this bubbling joy in your heart, well, do something. That's what I'm asking people to do. How about congratulations? Congratulations,
Yes.
job well
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. Just an acknowledgement. That's the exact right word.
Absolutely.
Just an acknowledgement.
Right.
Even the word cool.
Yeah, cool. Yeah,
But
that's a good word.
I'm finding that you know that's it's apparently a little hard for people to do.
Well, maybe,
I've just been
maybe,
I've gotten much more tuned in the last few years,
well, I'm so
and
happy to know that.
it's
So look,
people are usually being kind of dumb about this stuff.
look, I'm hoping people will take away that they can do something. They don't have to do the same old narcissistic behaviors of demeaning, devaluing, and disconnecting and ignoring and there's something everybody could do just a little bit better, and that's why I chose the topic tonight. So if you're
Yeah,
close-hearted,
I'm really glad I called.
yeah,
I saw your email, and I intended to, and it was about 10:03, and I was like, oh wait a second, she's on, and
well,
my
thank you, Steve, for letting me illustrate my point and for participating. And
no,
just remembering,
you may have cracked a good something that could be a big thing for me. I'll
well,
watch that very carefully. The connection and the off-putting.
right, exactly. So, okay, so keep in touch. Let me know how
Will
this
do.
tracking through is affecting your life going forward, and for all of you listening, what you're taking away from this conversation. And I'm going to open up the space for other people to call in. I'm going to talk a
Sure,
little
of course. Thank you
about
so
it.
much for the time. Thank you.
My pleasure, Steve. Thank you for calling in. Okay, so look, people have different levels of open-heartedness. Some people are empathic, some people are more on the close-hearted side. And in this show, I'm saying wherever you are on the spectrum of narcissistic behavior, do better, okay? We still live in this world, and we are wired to connect. And it behooves us to connect on all levels. And if you want to take it from a selfish point of view, then selfishly do better so that you can have better EQ, you can get a better relationship with coworkers going, you can have better relationship with your significant other and your others and your children and so on. So I want to get into this self-reflect, self-correct philosophy. Okay. And what it really is all about is that when you hit the wall, when you feel that you are not progressing in life, and you feel that you're doing the what the Freud, which is the repetitive cycle, whether it be a behavior that you don't want to be doing, or a thought pattern that's ruminating in your mind, or anything that's stuck and not bringing you any light, and maybe even taking away from your light, just shine the spotlight on it. And lately, what I've been doing with myself is if I do a behavior that I don't like, I just kind of like mentally, I go, I'm circling it. I'm going to circle that behavior. I don't like that behavior. So number one, you identify it, and then you say, I want to do something about it. I'm really motivated to do something about it, because if I keep doing the same behavior over and over again, then if you can extrapolate that behavior, it might lead to breakdown. Okay, it'll certainly lead to chaos defenses, and the defenses don't hold up anyway, so you end up breaking down. So that's the first thing that I like to do, is just identify it. And in my mind, it just kind of like, oh, see that? You see that about you? I don't like that about me. Now, what am I going to do to fix it? Okay, so one of them is that I sometimes I get tired and then I start falling asleep, and then I sleep too much, and then my bed becomes my comfort zone. And so now lately I've just been circling it and saying, no, no, you're not going to get that cozy. So I might get up and I might do some actually I do some push-ups against my bathroom sink, and I do some weights, or I might jog in place for a little while, or I might set up my schedule that I have to get up early in the morning to see a patient, or go to yoga, or just schedule a yoga class, because it's hard to just motivate when you don't plan. And so that's how I do it. And I'd like to hear how you do it. So if anybody wants to share their process on how they might self-reflect, and then what they might do to self-correct on what they just saw, knowing, of course, that if you continue that behavior, it's not going to get any better. Your body's just going to start breaking down and get lazier and lazier, and your back might hurt and your hips might hurt, and it might be harder and harder to get energy going. And anybody out there that wants to share a little bit about what they're self-reflecting on and how they're self-correcting, I'd love to hear from you. And if there are any comments in the chat room, I'll take that. Okay, so why don't we do this? Go back to the mind map and just look at right now. Let's look at panel number 7, 8, and 9. Okay, that represents paradigm shift, and then we've got the healing and the unity. And so we don't ever get into paradigm shift if we are stagnant, because paradigm shift involves a new way of seeing and a new way of being. And in order to see differently, we have to look at what our shadows are that block us from insight and block our psycho-perceptual lens from seeing clearly. Because if we're seeing through the eyes of our parents, if we're seeing through the eyes of psychopathology, as I like to put it, well, then we're seeing a very, very distorted world. And that distortion is certainly not going to generate any light. It's not going to generate any healing, and it's not going to generate any unity. So most people literally live in panel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They get wounded, their wounds get activated, they react, they get triggered in their negative core beliefs like I'm not good enough, I'm not this enough, I'm not that enough, which then leads them to chaos, defenses, and breakdowns, and then rinse and repeat. And that's where the planet seems to be stuck. And in order to evolve, we have to do this process of self-reflecting and self-correcting. And in order to do that, we've got to be ethical and honest and rigorously honest when it comes to ourselves, our behaviors, our effects on other people. And we've got to be able to take feedback, something that most people with narcissistic traits cannot do, because they misinterpret feedback to mean criticism. So if I say to somebody with severe narcissistic traits, when you, I don't know, I'm trying to make something up here, I'm not coming up with something, but if I say something to them that is a feedback to them, let's say they're public speaking, and I say, it'd be great if you started your speech off with an introduction about who you are. They might take it as an offense, and they might say, like, what do you mean? Like, what don't you think I'm a good speaker? Like, what's wrong with you? Yeah, I get it. You just you're picking on something petty. Didn't you hear how smart I was? So in other words, can you hear what I'm trying to say here is that there's a confusion between feedback and criticism. And where did that come from? It probably came from a very critical parent who didn't give them feedback, gave them criticism. And so now they're trigger happy. If they hear anything, they might twist that into some form of criticism. Of course, I designed that peaceful healing dialogue, which is on my website that you can grab a copy of. It's in the forms section on my website. It's also in my book. There is a way to talk to people and ask them for permission to give feedback, because you don't want to just be in their face and say, hey, do you know that when you said this, this, and that, you didn't come across as very knowledgeable? You don't want to come across that way. So you want to use the peaceful healing dialogue, which starts with, hey, is this a good time to talk? Do you mind if I give you a little bit of feedback about what I thought about your speech yesterday? And then it's up to the person to say, no, thank you, I'm good. Or, yeah, I'm really interested to hear. So when you speak to people, style matters. So the style that does matter is stay connected, stay honest, ask permission, tell people what you want to say without demeaning, devaluing, and destroying them, and ask for corrections in terms of how your style is, and they can help you help yourself to better your style so that they can hear you better. So this is all part of the self-reflection and the self-correction, so that no matter where you are on the narcissistic scale of things or the empathic scale of things, you can always do better. And you can always look to your ethics and your ability to look in the proverbial mirror and generate a more connecting kind of conversation with the people around you. Remember, this is about healing human disconnect. So if there aren't any other questions, I'm going to close out for the evening. Stay connected, stay rigorously honest with yourself. And if you find narcissistic traits that you don't like about yourself, then circle them in your mind and pinpoint them and figure out a way to do better. Thank you so much, everyone. And also, I want to let you know that I'm working on my video, editing it, Be the Cause Mind Map Journey Healing from Narcissistic Abuse. Hope it'll be out in the next month and a half or so. And I look forward to people calling the Psychological Healing Center and requesting free consultations. Thank you so much for tuning in. Good night, everyone.